My name is Marcus, and I am 29 years old. I live in a modest 3-bedroom house in a suburban neighborhood that most people would describe as comfortable but unassuming. The lawn is green, the fence is white, and the mortgage is the one weight I carry that reminds me I have finally built something that belongs to me. I run my own tech company now. It is not a billion-dollar unicorn, but it is profitable. It pays the bills, it allows me to hire a small team of brilliant people, and it gives me the freedom to wake up every morning and do something that I love. But this is not a story about success. This is a story about the long shadow of family, and the moment I learned to stop begging for light. I want to take you back to the beginning, because to understand the ending, you have to understand the coldness of the start. I was 22 when I had the idea. It was a software platform designed to help small businesses manage their inventory and customer relationships in a way that was intuitive and affordable. I had spent 2 years working a dead-end job at a warehouse, saving every penny I could, and living on instant noodles and sheer stubbornness. I had the technical skills, I had a prototype, and I had a business plan that I had rewritten at least 40 times. I had also done the market research. I knew the competitors. I knew the price points. I knew that if I could get just $85,000, I could refine the product, launch it with a proper marketing campaign, and start generating revenue within 6 months. It was not a moonshot. It was a solid, calculated risk. But I had zero credit history, and banks looked at me like I was applying for a loan to buy a rocket ship to Mars. So, I did what any young person with a dream does. I went to my parents. I remember that night with a clarity that still stings. It was a Tuesday. The rain was falling in sheets outside, and the house smelled of the pot roast my mother had made for dinner. My father was in his armchair, reading the newspaper like it was a sacred text. My mother was tidying the kitchen, humming a tune that I had heard 1,000 times. My brother, Derek, was there too. He was 25 at the time, and he was already the golden child. He had that easy charm, that effortless way of making people feel like he was the center of the universe. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, occasionally laughing at something that I was not privy to. He was between jobs, as usual. He had a habit of starting things and never finishing them. But my parents never saw it that way. They saw potential. They saw a son who was a late bloomer. They saw everything they wanted to see. I waited until the dishes were cleared and the coffee was poured. I had rehearsed this moment in my head 100 times. I was calm. I was professional. I was going to present my case like a CEO pitching to a board of investors. I remember clearing my throat, and the sound seemed to echo in the quiet room. My father looked up from his newspaper, his eyebrows slightly raised. My mother paused in her tidying. Derek glanced up from his phone for a fraction of a second, then went back to scrolling. "Mom, Dad," I began. "I need to talk to you about something important." My father folded his newspaper slowly. That was his way of signaling that he was granting me his attention, but that I was on a short leash. "What is it, Marcus?" he asked. His voice was flat, without warmth. I took a deep breath. "I have a business plan. A tech company. I've been working on it for years, and I'm at the point where I need to launch it. I need some funding to get it off the ground." My mother stopped moving and turned to face me. She had that look on her face, the one that said she was already bracing for disappointment. "Funding," she repeated, as if the word itself was foreign. "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. $85,000. That's all I need. I have a prototype, I have a business plan, I have a market strategy. I've done the math. This is a solid investment. The silence that followed was thick. I could hear the rain pelting against the window. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. My father stared at me for a long moment, and then he did something that I will never forget. He laughed. It was a short, dry, dismissive laugh, the kind that is designed to belittle you without saying a single insulting word. $85,000, he said. For a tech company? Are you serious, Marcus? I felt my throat tighten. Yes, sir. I am very serious. This is a legitimate opportunity. I've put together a presentation. I can show you the numbers. My father waved his hand, dismissing the idea. I don't need to see your numbers. I've seen this before. It's a scam. These tech things, these startups, they are just a way for young people to burn through money and end up with nothing. You are smart, Marcus. You have a good head on your shoulders. Why would you throw that away on a fantasy? My mother chimed in, her voice softer but just as cutting. Honey, we love you. We want what's best for you. But this sounds risky. Very risky. What if you lose it all? What if you fail? You need stability. You need a real job. This is not a real job. I tried to argue. I pulled out my tablet and showed them the presentation. I showed them the market analysis. I showed them the projected growth charts. I showed them the testimonials from the beta testers. I was passionate. I was desperate. I was pleading with them to see what I saw. But they had already made up their minds. Derek finally looked up from his phone and offered his 2 cents. "Come on, man," he said, smirking. "Tech is overrated. It's not like you're inventing the next iPhone. You're just making some app that nobody is going to use. Get a real job like the rest of us." The rest of us. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Derek had never held a job for more than 6 months. He had flunked out of community college. He had crashed his car, and his credit score was in the gutter. But he was the golden child, and everything he did was seen as a temporary setback, while everything I did was seen as a permanent failure. I looked at my father, hoping for a flicker of belief. "Dad, please," I said. "I just need a chance." "You gave Derek a chance. You co-signed his loan for that car he wrecked. You paid for his tuition when he failed. Why won't you give me a chance?" My father's face hardened. "That's different," he said. "Derek needs help. He needs support. You are supposed to be the independent one, Marcus. You don't need a handout. You are smart enough to figure it out on your own." That was the moment I understood the divide. I was the child who was expected to succeed without help. I was the child who was supposed to be the strong one, the one who never needed anything. Derek was the child who was allowed to fail again and again because he was the one who needed to be saved. It was a dynamic that had been in place since we were children, and I had never been able to break through it. I stood up, my hands shaking. "Fine," I said. "If you won't help me, I'll find a way. I always do." And I did. I walked away from that dinner table with my pride in tatters, but my determination still intact. I spent the next year working 2 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, and scraping together every dollar I could. I launched my company on a shoestring budget. I coded the software myself. I handled the customer service calls from my bedroom. I ate ramen noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was brutal, but it was mine. And slowly, painfully, it started to work. The revenue trickled in, then flowed, then soared. By the time I was 25, I had paid off my initial debts and was turning a profit. By the time I was 27, I had hired my first employee. By the time I was 29, I had bought this house, the one with the white fence and the green lawn. I had done it on my own. I had built something from nothing. And I had done it all without a single penny from my parents. But while I was grinding, my parents were living a different kind of life. After they refused to give me the $85,000, they had come into a significant inheritance from my grandmother's estate. It was close to $900,000. I did not know this at first. I found out later, piece by piece, through the cracks in their stories and the lavish gifts they started giving Derek. It started with a new car. A sleek, expensive sports car that was parked in my parents' driveway. Derek had not bought it. My parents had. Then came the Rolex watches. I saw them on Derek's wrist at family gatherings. He would flash them around, telling everyone about the limited edition models and the custom designs. He would talk about how his investments were paying off, how he was about to close a deal on a big real estate project, how he was going to be a millionaire by the end of the year. I knew it was all smoke and mirrors. I could see the lies in his eyes. But my parents were lapping it up. They were giving him money like it was going out of style. They co-signed loans. They paid off his credit cards. They invested in his so-called business ventures, which were essentially him buying expensive things and hoping they would appreciate in value. I confronted them once when I found out about the extent of the spending. I had heard from a cousin that my parents had dipped into the inheritance to fund Derek's startup, a boutique retail store that sold overpriced sneakers and streetwear. I asked my mother about it. She brushed me off, saying it was a family investment. I asked her why she didn't consider my company a family investment. She had the audacity to tell me that my company was too risky, while Derek's store was a sure thing because he had a knack for fashion. The store lasted 8 months. It went bankrupt, leaving behind a mountain of unpaid bills and unsold inventory. But that did not stop my parents. They believed in Derek. They believed that he was just one lucky break away from greatness. They drained more money into his schemes. They bought him more watches, more cars, more clothes. They paid for his lavish vacations. They funded his lifestyle with the inheritance that could have been used to build something real, something lasting. And all the while, I was the one who was invisible. I was the one who was expected to show up at family dinners with a smile on my face, to congratulate Derek on his latest achievement, to pretend that I wasn't watching them pour hundreds of thousands of dollars into a black hole. It ate at me, but I kept quiet. I told myself that I was the bigger person. I told myself that I didn't need their money, that I was better off on my own. But the resentment was like a slow-burning fire in my chest. It grew with every Rolex, every car, every failed business venture that my parents funded with a smile. Then came the fall. It happened slowly at first, and then all at once. Derek's world started to unravel. His real estate empire turned out to be a few bad investments in a declining market. His sneaker boutique had left a trail of debt. His investment portfolio was mostly just him gambling on risky stocks and losing. And my parents, who had been his safety net, were running out of money. The $900,000 was gone. It had been spent, squandered, and burned through on a series of terrible decisions. My father's retirement savings, which he had also dipped into to support Derek, were gone. My mother's inheritance was gone. They had mortgaged their house to pay off Derek's debts. They had sold their car to cover his credit card bills. They had given everything to him, and now they had nothing. I saw the signs first in my father. He looked tired, drawn, and old. The arrogance that had once defined him was replaced by a weary desperation. My mother was the same. She stopped humming. She stopped smiling. She had this haunted look in her eyes, the look of someone who has watched their world crumble around them. I asked them what was wrong, and they lied to me. They said everything was fine. They said they were just tired. They said it was just the stress of getting older. But I knew better. I knew because Derek had started calling me, asking for money. He started with small requests, a few $100s here and there, which I ignored. Then he started asking for larger amounts, and I started blocking his calls. I had no sympathy for him. He had burned through his inheritance, and he was coming to me to fund his next disaster. I was done being the responsible one. I was done being the safety net for his recklessness. But the reckoning was coming from my parents, and it came in the form of a foreclosure notice. They had fallen behind on their mortgage payments, and the bank was threatening to take the house. It was the house I had grown up in. It was the house with the oak tree in the backyard, the house with the creaky stairs, the house where I had learned to ride a bike, and where I had celebrated my first birthdays. It was a house full of memories, but it was also a house full of pain. My parents had chosen Derek over me. They had sacrificed everything for him, and now they were about to lose everything. I got the call from my mother. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was in my home office, reviewing a proposal for a new client. The phone rang, and I saw her name on the screen. I hesitated. I had been avoiding their calls for weeks, because I knew what was coming. But I answered, because I am not a monster. "Marcus," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you. Please. It's urgent." "What is it, Mom?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, ragged and shallow. Then she spoke, and her words cut through me like a knife. "Your father and I, we are in trouble. We are losing the house. The bank is going to take it away next month. We have nowhere to go. We need your help." I felt the cold anger rise in my chest. "My help?" I repeated. "What kind of help?" "We need money, Marcus. We need a lot of money. We need to pay off the arrears, and we need to cover the mortgage. We need about $150,000. Please, Marcus. You are our son. You have to help us." I laughed. I could not help it. It was a bitter, hollow laugh. $150,000? That's what you need? $150,000? Do you know how much that is, Mom? Do you know how long it took me to earn that kind of money? I worked my fingers to the bone. I ate ramen for years. I built my company from scratch, with no help from anyone, while you and Dad were busy funding Derek's Rolex collection. My mother started crying. I could hear the tears in her voice. "I know, Marcus. I know. We made mistakes. We were wrong. We should have listened to you. We should have believed in you. But we need you now. We are your parents. We have nowhere else to turn." It was the first time she had ever apologized. It was the first time she had ever admitted that she was wrong. And I wanted to feel something, anything, other than anger. But I felt nothing. The years of neglect, the years of being invisible, the years of watching them pour their love and their money into a bottomless pit, had left me empty. I told her I needed time to think, and I hung up. That was a mistake. Because the next day, they showed up at my house. They just appeared on my doorstep, unannounced, and uninvited. My mother was sobbing. My father looked gray and broken. They stood on my porch, looking at me like I was their last hope. And behind them, as I peered out the window, I saw Derek's car. He was waiting in the driveway. He had the audacity to bring his car, the one my parents had bought for him, to my house while they were begging me for money. It was a slap in the face. It was a testament to their priorities. Even now, even when they were on the verge of homelessness, Derek was sitting in a car that they had paid for, watching his parents do his dirty work. I opened the door, and my mother threw her arms around me. "Please, Marcus," she sobbed. "Please help us. We will pay you back. We will do anything." My father stood behind her, his eyes downcast. "Son," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We are sorry. We are so sorry. We made a terrible mistake. Derek, he took everything from us. He took it all. And now we have nothing. You are all we have left." I looked at them, this man and this woman who had given birth to me, and I felt a profound sense of loss. Not for them, but for myself. I had spent my whole life trying to earn their love, trying to prove my worth, and it had never been enough. They had chosen Derek. They had always chosen Derek. And even now, when they were on their knees, they were only coming to me because Derek had failed them. I was the backup plan. I was the safety net. I was the one they called when their golden child had broken their hearts and their bank accounts. I asked them to come inside. I sat them down in my living room. I offered them a glass of water, which they refused. I asked them for the details. How much did they owe? To whom? What was the timeline? They told me everything. The missed payments, the interest, the penalties. It was a mess. It was a disaster. And it was all because of Derek. When they were done, I nodded. I told them I understood. I told them I would think about it. And then I asked them the question that had been burning in my mind for years. Why did you give him everything? Why did you give him $900,000, but you wouldn't give me $85,000? Why was he worth everything, and I was worth nothing? My mother started crying again. My father stared at the floor. Neither of them had an answer. They just sat there, two broken people, with no explanation for the years of pain they had inflicted on me. I looked at them, and I felt a surge of clarity. I was not their son. I was their insurance policy. I was their pension fund. I was the one they had neglected so that they could save the one they loved. And I was done being used. "Get out," I said. My voice was calm, but it was firm. It was the voice of a man who had finally found his spine. My mother looked up, her face etched with shock. "What? Get out," I repeated. "You heard me. Get out of my house. You are not welcome here." "But Marcus, we are your parents," she wailed. "How can you do this to us?" I stood up. I walked to the front door and opened it. "I am not doing anything to you," I said. "You did this to yourselves. You chose him. You gave him everything. You drained your savings, your inheritance, your retirement, all for him. And now, when it's gone, you come to me. You come to the son you called a scam. You come to the son you refused to help. I am not your bank. I am not your emergency fund. I am not your safety net. You made your bed, and now you can sleep in it. Get out." They tried to argue. They pleaded. They begged. My father even dropped to his knees, a gesture of desperation that was so foreign to his proud nature that I almost felt sorry for him. But I did not relent. I had spent too many years being invisible. I had spent too many years being their backup plan. I was not going to let them destroy my life, my company, my house, everything I had built, to save them from their own mistakes. I ushered them out the door, and I closed it behind them. I heard my mother sobbing on the other side. I heard my father's muffled apologies. I heard the sound of Derek's car engine starting. And then they were gone. I walked back into my living room and sat down on the couch. The silence was deafening. I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sorrow, relief, and a strange sense of liberation. I had finally said what I had wanted to say for years. I had finally stood up for myself. I had finally told them that I was not going to be the one to clean up the mess they had made. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the most necessary. I thought about all the years I had spent working my fingers to the bone. I thought about the ramen noodles and the sleepless nights. I thought about the rejections, the failures, the moments when I wanted to give up. And I realized that I had survived all of that because I was strong. I was resilient. I had built something from nothing. My parents had tried to destroy me with their neglect, but they had only made me stronger. And Derek, the golden child, had collapsed under the weight of their love. It was a cruel irony, but it was also a profound truth. I spent the next few days in a daze. I answered my emails. I took calls from my clients. I went through the motions of my life. But my mind was elsewhere. I was replaying the confrontation over and over again. I was questioning myself. Was I too harsh? Was I being cruel? Should I have helped them, even after everything they had done? It was a moral dilemma that kept me up at night. But every time I thought about relenting, I remembered the dinner table where they had called my dream a scam. I remembered the Rolex watches. I remembered the sports car. I remembered the way they had looked at Derek with pride and looked at me with pity. And my resolve hardened. I decided to talk to a therapist. It was a decision that I had been putting off for years because I was too proud to admit that I needed help. But this was too big for me to handle on my own. I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma, and I started going to sessions every week. We talked about my childhood. We talked about the golden child dynamic. We talked about the emotional abuse that I had endured, the constant comparisons, the feeling of never being good enough. It was painful. It was like peeling back layers of scar tissue to reveal wounds that had never healed. But it was also cathartic. I started to understand that my parents' neglect was not a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of their own limitations. They were flawed people. They had made terrible choices. And they had hurt me. But I was not responsible for their happiness. I was not responsible for their mistakes. I was responsible for myself and for my own well-being. The therapist also helped me see that my decision to cut them off was not a sign of cruelty. It was a sign of self-respect. I was setting a boundary. I was protecting myself. I was refusing to be used as a doormat. It was a healthy choice, even if it was a painful one. I started to feel a sense of peace. Not happiness, exactly, but a deep, quiet acceptance. I had done the right thing. I had done the only thing I could do to save myself. But the story does not end there. A few weeks after the confrontation, I got a call from a lawyer. It was a call that I did not expect, and it changed everything. The lawyer told me that my parents were suing me. They were suing me for financial support, under a law that allowed parents to claim support from their adult children. It was a ridiculous claim. The law was designed to protect parents who were unable to work due to age or disability, not parents who had squandered their money on their adult sons' failed ventures. But it was a desperate move, and I knew it was Derek's idea. He was the one who was always looking for a loophole, a way to get something for nothing. My parents, broken and desperate, had gone along with it. I was furious, but I also knew that I had to fight back. I hired a lawyer of my own, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Evelyn. She looked at the case, laughed, and told me that my parents had no chance of winning. They can't sue you for their own financial irresponsibility, she said. They drained their money on your brother. They have no case. But Evelyn also warned me that the lawsuit would be a public spectacle. It would be messy. It would be in the papers. It would drag my family's dirty laundry out into the open. I told her that I did not care. They had already dragged me through the mud. I was not going to let them do it again. The lawsuit went to court. It was a nightmare. My parents sat on one side of the courtroom, looking old and pathetic. Derek sat behind them, trying to look innocent. And I sat on the other side, alone. My lawyer presented the evidence, the inheritance, the Rolexes, the sports car, the failed businesses. She showed the court how my parents had funneled money to Derek, how they had ignored my pleas for help, how they had called my business a scam. The judge was not impressed. He looked at my parents with a mixture of pity and disdain. He asked them if they had any financial assets left. They had none. He asked them if they had any income. They had none. He asked them what they expected me to do. My father mumbled something about family obligation. The judge shook his head. He ruled in my favor, dismissing the case. He even went so far as to suggest that my parents had been negligent in their financial duties. It was a victory, but it felt hollow. As I left the courthouse, my mother tried to approach me. She was sobbing, reaching out her hand. "Marcus, please," she begged. "We are sorry. We are so sorry. We just want our son back." I looked at her. I looked at my father, who was standing behind her, his face a mask of shame. And I looked at Derek, who was already walking away, ready to abandon his parents to deal with the consequences of his actions. I realized that my mother's apology was not sincere. It was a tactic. She was still trying to manipulate me. She was still trying to get something from me. And I was not going to give her the satisfaction. "I told you to get out," I said. "I meant it. I don't want to see you again. I don't want to hear from you again. I am done. You can go back to your golden child and see how far that gets you." I turned and walked away. I did not look back. It was the final scene in a long, painful drama, and I was finally ready to close the curtain. That was 6 months ago. I have not spoken to my parents since. I have not spoken to Derek since. They have tried to reach out, through letters, through emails, through mutual friends. They have tried to guilt me, manipulate me, and pressure me into forgiving them. But I have held firm. I have blocked their numbers. I have returned their letters unopened. I have told my friends and family that I do not want to hear about them. It has been a difficult decision. There are days when I wake up and I feel a pang of guilt. There are days when I wonder if I am being too harsh, if I am condemning them to a life of misery. But then I remember the pain. I remember the years of neglect. I remember the moment they called my dream a scam. And I know that I made the right choice. I have also started to rebuild my life. I am more focused on my company than ever. The business is growing. We are expanding our product line. We are hiring more employees. We are making a real impact on the lives of our clients. I have also started to build a new family, a chosen family of friends and colleagues who believe in me, who support me, who see me for who I am. I am dating a woman named Sophia. She is an architect. She is kind, patient, and fiercely independent. She knows the whole story, and she has never judged me for it. She respects my boundaries, and she helps me see that I am worthy of love and respect. It is a strange feeling, being loved without conditions. It is something I never had from my parents, and it is something I am still learning to accept. I think about my parents sometimes. I wonder where they are, what they are doing. I have heard through the grapevine that they are living in a small apartment, scraping by on my father's meager pension. I have heard that Derek has disappeared, that he has moved to another state to escape his debts. I have heard that my mother is sick, that the stress of the situation has taken a toll on her health. I do not know if these stories are true. I do not want to know. I have made peace with the fact that they are no longer part of my life. I have forgiven them, not for their sake, but for mine. Forgiveness is not about reconciliation. It is about letting go of the anger that is poisoning your soul. I have let go. I have moved on. But the memory of that night, the night they came to my house and begged me for help, will stay with me forever. It was the night I told them to get out. It was the night I finally found my voice. It was the night I stopped being invisible. I am not the same person I was before. I am stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I have learned that family is not about blood. It is about loyalty, respect, and love. My parents did not give me those things. So I went out and found them for myself. This story is not a tale of revenge. It is a tale of survival. It is a reminder that you do not have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. It is a reminder that you have the right to say no, even to the people who raised you. It is a reminder that your dreams are valid, even if the people who are supposed to love you cannot see them. If you are in a similar situation, if you are being taken advantage of by your family, if you are being treated like a doormat, I want you to know that you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not being selfish. You are being brave. You are setting boundaries. You are protecting yourself. And that is the most important thing you can do. I have no regrets. I have my company. I have my house. I have my friends, my girlfriend, and my self-respect. I have a future that is bright and full of possibility. And I have the satisfaction of knowing that I did it all on my own. No one gave me anything. I earned everything. And that is a feeling that no one can take away from me. The Payback Diaries are not about revenge against my parents. They are about paying back the universe for all the pain I have endured. They are about showing that hard work, determination, and self-belief can overcome even the deepest wounds. They are about building a life that is so full and so rich that the past can no longer hurt you. I have done that. I have built that life. And I am proud of it. I am not going to lie. There are moments when I still feel the sting. There are moments when I remember the laughter at the dinner table, the dismissive wave of my father's hand, the pity in my mother's eyes. There are moments when the anger flares up, and I want to scream. But I have learned to channel that anger. I have learned to use it as fuel. When I feel the anger, I go for a run. I work on a new project. I spend time with the people who love me. I do not let it consume me. I refuse to let them win. And in a strange way, I am grateful to them. I am grateful that they taught me how to be independent. I am grateful that they taught me the value of hard work. I am grateful that they showed me what I did not want to become. I am grateful that they forced me to rely on myself, because that reliance has made me the person I am today. I am not a victim. I am a survivor. And I am thriving. So, if you are out there, and you are reading this, I want you to know that you can survive too. You can overcome the betrayal. You can build a life that is better than the one you were given. You can find people who will love you unconditionally. You can find your voice. You can say no. You can walk away. It will be hard. It will be painful, but it will be worth it. This is my story. This is my payback diary. And I am not done yet. I have a lot of life left to live, a lot of dreams left to chase, and a lot of love left to give. My parents tried to break me, but they failed. I am standing tall. I am standing proud. And I am free. I have written this story because I know I am not alone. There are millions of people out there who have been in my shoes, who have been betrayed by their families, who have been used as a safety net, who have been told that their dreams are not valid. I want you to know that you are not alone. I want you to know that you have the power to change your story. You have the power to walk away. You have the power to build a new life. It is not easy. It takes courage. It takes resilience. It takes a willingness to let go of the past. But it is possible. I am proof that it is possible. I am going to end this story with a piece of advice. It is the advice that I wish someone had given me when I was 22 years old, sitting at that dinner table, begging for a chance. The advice is this: do not wait for other people to believe in you. Believe in yourself. Your parents, your friends, your siblings, they may not see your vision. They may call it a scam. They may mock it. They may dismiss it. But that does not mean it is not real. That does not mean it is not valuable. That does not mean you should give up. You are the only person who can bring your dreams to life. So do it. Work hard. Stay focused. Do not let anyone stand in your way. And when you succeed, when you have built something from nothing, do not let the people who doubted you come back and take credit for your success. Do not let them come back and drain you of everything you have earned. You are not their safety net. You are not their emergency fund. You are your own person, and you deserve to be treated with respect. I have said my piece. I have told my story. I have shared my pain and my triumph. And now I am going to live my life. I am going to keep building my company. I am going to keep loving my chosen family. I am going to keep moving forward. The past is behind me, and the future is bright. If you enjoyed this story, if it resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. We are in this together. We are survivors. And we are not alone. Thank you for listening. Goodbye, and good luck. Remember, the greatest act of payback is not revenge. It is living well. And I am living very, very well.